Yes, so I'm recording now. Yeah, so that's what I have to tell you about Aquaworld right now, just because of our time. And then we go straight into the seminar. And then I've just introduced our guest speaker for today. So, okay. Oh, no. So, Oluwakemi Obagboye is a sustainable professional working at the intersection of health, climate education, and community impact. So she currently works in the health sector as a sustainability consultant, supporting organizations to implement practical, people-centered sustainability solutions that deliver real environmental and social value. So Kemi holds a master's degree in sustainability from the University of Salford in Manchester, alongside a bachelor's degree in fisheries and aquaculture, giving her giving her a strong foundation in environmental systems, food security, and climate science resilience. So our speaker, she's all way-rounded person. She's the founder of Tank, a children-focused sustainability initiative that is designed to build climate literacy among children in the global south. And through age-appropriate learning to school-based programs and hands-on activities, Tank helps children understand climate change, nature-based solutions, and environmental responsibility in accessible and culturally relevant ways, particularly in underserved communities. She also runs Climate on the Street, a public engagement program that brings climate conversations directly into communities through storytelling and lived experiences. Oluwakemi is passionate about equitable sustainability and empowering the next generation of climate conscious leaders. So, without further ado, I want us with a round of applause. Let's welcome our speaker for today, Oluwakemi Obagboye. You are welcome, Kemi.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was a lot of introduction.
Oh yeah, I have to do
Hi,
that, right?
everyone. My name is Oluwakemi, like Paul said. So, today we'll just be doing it like we'd have a discussion. Okay. So rather than me coming to do like a presentation. All right. So,
Yep. Sorry about that. Okay. Yep.
all right.
Can
So,
you see my screen?
yes, I can see it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So today we'll be discussing about children, coastal communities, and climate change. Um, when we talk about climate change, most times we think of adults rather than children. And we think of adults rather than children. Um, so in the adaptation process, children are not, really included. It's more on adults. The mitigation process is more on adults. And so coastal communities are, I want to believe everyone here, we volunteer or we've heard of coastal communities and what they are. And so I'm just going to start from my own personal story. The very first time I was going to go to coastal community was, I think I was in 400 level, and we had gone on an excursion in school. And where we had spent, I think we spent around 4 or 3 days there. And that actually changed my perspective about life, about, what is being done elsewhere from where I have lived all my life, seeing the environment in which these people are, and they are part of, the food basket of the nation, um, food basket of Nigeria. And, they are just like a second class citizen living in their country. A lot is not being done for them. And they, whether we like it or not, they bear the brunt of, the effect of this climate change. So, Paul, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So, rising tides, falling future. we can see children from, this is someone from Africa, and the other is somewhere in Asia, and living their life. The other one is with someone with a flooded house. I mean, she's just too young to bear that burnt and probably thinking what's happening. It's strange to her. She doesn't know the cause. She doesn't know the reason why it's happening. And the other one, is in the river as well, and maybe trying to catch fish, and it's not coming for, like they would usually tell a story of, oh, some 20 years ago it wasn't like this, and they don't know what the future holds for them. They look lost just there, and it's not their fault it's happening, but they've just found themselves in there. Paul, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So I'm just going to start with what is climate change. Climate change refers to a long-term shift in temperature, in weather patterns, driven primarily by human activities, by our own work, by what has been done in the 80s, in the um, pre-industrialization era, and from burning fossil fuels to agriculture as well, to different forms of human activities, and this has impacted the earth in a very negative way. And these actions releases greenhouse gases that are trapped in it, caused by global warming. I mean, that causes global warming, rather, sorry, causes global warming, affects sea level rise, and also extreme weather conditions, extreme heat. And from this diagram, we can see that's the earth there. And it's just explaining, what we do from construction, that's the housing, to the cars, to industry. All of these come together. The green one there will note agriculture comes together to, to explain human activities, what is done, from construction to transportation, and the earth is bleeding, and this has caused, a change in temperature, affecting, causing different things in different region, to deforestation, to drought, to flooding, to heat stress. Paul, please, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So, to drought and water stress in some regions of the world, we are going to see that later on the map, to flooding and severe storms, to heat stress, to air pollution. The quality of air in which, I mean, we breathe in some part of the world is actually, of lesser quality, due to all of these human activities that is happening currently. And also climate change also helps or promotes diseases due to heat that has been caused in certain regions. Yep. And all of these bear burnt in children, the adults can actually survive because our immune system, have going to be toughened compared to children. And if looking at some data, we see that children under 5, they die a lot from, air pollution, air related diseases, from heat stress causing causing diseases in places like Africa, due to different types of fever, malaria, because all of that increase in temperature aids breeding for them. And that's one of the problems children have with climate change. Please, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So, according to UNICEF, for children, over 1 billion children, they are globally at risk, high risk from climate hazard. Like we explained, like I said earlier, over 1 billion children, 240 million are highly exposed to coastal flooding worldwide. If we look at Nigeria, for example, you look at Pakistani, we look at Myanmar, and these areas are regions that are exposed to flooding. And during flooding, adults could actually fight for yourself, but these are innocent people that didn't contribute to all of this, and they are bearing majority of the burnt. And we have 33 million children disposed by weather disaster every year. Due to drought, they have to move locations, and they are not stable. All of these actually affect mental health, whether they like it or not. I remember one time I had to go to a place in Lagos. It's called Makoko, and in Makoko, I spent few hours there, helping to understand. I mean, that's on top of the Lagos Lagoon, and helping to understand that it is not, I mean, due to the high level sea level rise, it is not conducive for them due to the mosquito breeding, like I said earlier. And flooding constantly occurs, water comes into their houses, and they're not um they're not conducive enough for a child to grow. And then we have over 43.1 million children that are displaced due to weather related events. And all of this is unfair on the children, right? So let's go to the next slide, please. I'm so sorry I'm squinting my eyes. It's just because it's on my phone and I have to. Yeah. So the global injustice. We can see regions where all of this is in. It's particularly in Africa and in Asia. Having Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to squint my eyes on my phone. So it's particularly in Asia and Africa, majorly. And talking about the top 10, I think we have Central Africa Republic, Nigeria, and in the top 10 of children living at high risk countries due to climate change, particularly coastal caused by coastal region. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So this is a map showing children in different regions of the world, from Africa to Asia, that has been affected by high flooding. Right. And impact of flooding on this is that it actually disorganizes, cause disruption in education, and just makes their life stagnant. They're not moving. And loss of, I mean, when parents are not actually properly balanced and having to think of different things, at that minute your education, I mean, the education is secondary, it's not coming first, due to all of the flood and the fact that aids don't even come fast enough for people in this country or in this region, is another thing. Flood, I think we have 530 million children live in extremely high flooded region, and 10 million live in extreme high flood occurrences in zones. 34 million live in extreme high flood occurrences. And another thing is the children that are actually in this region actually live in high poverty. So that is also contributing to the to that fact that there's a global injustice, particularly for children in the global south when compared to their peers in the global north, who have access to aid, who could get help when they have issues like this. I mean, in the global north, when issues like this are about to occur, there's like an alarm that comes on to let you know, oh, flooding is going to happen in few days, what to do, how to keep yourself safe, aids will be sent, how you're going to get rescued. But when compared to children in the global south, aid is limited. This is going to have to disrupt their lives, whilst, I mean, their peers in the global north, their life moves on. Can I go to the next slide, please? Just trying. So, yeah. Yeah. So this is on children that live in the area for it as well. I'm sorry, drought and dry regions where there's water stress. And we all know how important water is. So these particular regions lack they do not have water, and they are water insecure. Um and this, whether we like it or not, affects children from their education. They have to go miles to get water. to take the bath, water to, to do cooking and stuff like that. So that automatically limits them. And it's very unfair that, the countries where this occurs most times are the one emitting the least of the emissions in the world. And so these children have to, go through all of this, and no rain, no water for basic amenities. I mean, that is one of the important things that we are supposed to have access to. Water is very important to us. So once they are in regions that are, water insecure, it limits a lot of things, and these occurrences should not be happening. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So for West and Central Africa, we have, you know, for regions that are high children climate risk, we have Central Africa Republic, Chad, Nigeria, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau. They are the most risk. And for East and Southern Africa, we have countries like Kenya, we have Tanzania, we have Uganda, South Sudan, Burundi. For South Asia, it is Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. They face high risk of flooding and extreme heat, and this impacts a lot. Millions of people. And in small highland developing states, we have Dominica, Myanmar, and they're exposed to extreme weather events as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So coming to the coastal life, um coastal life is not geography. I titled it that because getting into the uni in my 100 level, that was the first time I was ever going to see green space. Um, Coming from Agege, I've lived in Agege all my life in Lagos State, and I wasn't used to seeing everywhere green, big tall trees. We only seen them in American movies. And going into that space actually changed everything. And the first thing I remember coming out of my mouth was, "Oh, this is so beautiful." And I took in a deep breath because I got into a very serene environment. Yeah. So coastal life is not just geography. It's not just about the beach. It's not just about the waves. It's not just about, the water. It is childhood to them. It is what they would always remember. I know we all have, different childhood memories. What would normally do, run on the streets, play suwe. I can't remember the English for suwe, and do loads of things. And that is childhood for them. That was childhood for us, and it's childhood for them. It is, food. I'm sure they go into, the ocean to do some catch plays, and that environment is memories they would live to have, and it is memories they have to pass on to their children. So coastal life is not just geography, it's not geography to them like it is geography to, some people in the world. So it is where food and livelihood occurs. Coastal economy, we know how much of impact they have in the GDP, from food to income, and that is where they get school fees and education access as well. Identity and belonging, because that is where they belong. Most people don't even remember where their forefathers came from, but you know that. I've once asked someone in Makoko, and to them that is where their forefathers, or a grandparent have been, and that is where she knows as home. That is home to them. So it might be geography to some of us, but it is home to them. And when all of this happens, it affects their health. And looking at these coastal regions, they have limited access to health facilities. They have limited access to schools. They have limited access to a lot of things. And when all of this happens, from flooding to severe sea tides, going into their homes, and then they keep sand filling. I saw something on the TV, I think 2 months ago. I don't know, I've forgotten that part in Ondo State, where they had bags filled with sea sand, just trying to build a barricade so the tide doesn't even, come into their home, because it's taking spaces. Going how would I describe it now? Going into their homes and reclaiming land. Yeah, land reclamation. So that's what is happening. So when this flooding comes in, it contaminates water. They don't have access to good water as well, and malnutrition follows. Yeah, and for education access, the makeshift schools that are built for this community, sometimes when flood comes in, it takes it off, and these children are just, they don't have access to education, they don't have anyone coming for them, and that still remains, in that community. And we would like to agree together that education brings about development. It enlightens, and you can think outside of the box. So when school attendance is just ridiculously reduced, it's not like most of them, when you have talks with them, they don't want to. I've been opportune to speak to some of them, and they really want to go to school, but things happening around the communities is actually what is limiting them to education access. Like I stated here, saying that during fishing season cycles, some of them have to follow their fathers, for fishing, and some, when the sales is not making any sense, of course you can't go to school, so they need access to like free education or something to just push for that education. And then climate disruptions. When there is flooding, of course, you can't go to school. When the flood has overtaken their schools, on the news in Nigeria some few months ago, I think the Lagos State government has gone to Makoko to, disrupt, bring down buildings, because they advised they were very close to, I think the, what's it called now? The power line for electricity, and they have been very close to it, so they need them to move back 100 meters. But there is just one beautiful school in that community that serves these children for free, but the school was actually pulled down as well. So school education access for children in that field has been reduced. They would not have access to that for that minute. Their life is going to pause. And while their peers in the global north are moving forward, they don't have, issues like this. Paul, can we go to the next slide, please? All right, thank you very much. So yeah, so like I said earlier, so effects on children in coastal regions, coastal flooding causes, displacement, school closure, the daily routine is not properly planned. There's always disruptions and, heat stress, um, cholera that leads to diseases. Waterborne diseases like cholera, air pollution, having asthma, having different forms of respiratory diseases, malnutrition, and mental trauma, which is the part that we normally do not talk about in climate change. Everyone just feels like we are meant to adjust, and the mental aspect is not to be explored. Speaking to children, you just hear them say things like, why am I then in this world if you think this is going to happen in the next few years? And they feel like it's just too much for them to handle because of the way it has been projected to sound like, oh, the whole world is going to end and you guys will not have anywhere to live. So all of that causes anxiety for them, causes big issues for them, and also grief from repeated disasters. They just have PTSD. That's because it happens to them often and often. And even if it's not happening, I remember some weeks ago, as an adult, we had, like, I wouldn't say a bomb scare. I don't think it's a bomb scare, but the only thing that came to my head at that minute was, oh, there's a bomb scare that happened in Nigeria in 2001 or 2002. And so we could feel my house literally moving. So that came to my head like, oh, is that what is happening again? So imagine children having to go through, flood issues, having to go through all of this, and it sticks in their head. It sticks, um, gives them childhood, bad childhood memories. Please, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Yeah. And to say that children are the most exposed and they're the least prepared for. Most times when we talk about, climate literacy, educating people on climate change, what we do or what we think about most of the time is about adults. And we forget that, children are like the foundation, they're the future, and they need to be properly equipped for the future. So there is little access to climate literacy for children. Most times, when we see children being taught about climate literacy, most times it's, always limited to waste and say, oh, waste is the problem we have, waste is the problem we have. And, that is what they just have inside of them. And in these coastal areas, there is limit to, the climate literacy being taken to that environment. Of course, coming into, a vulnerable community to start saying, oh, do this, do that. Of course, there are ways we can project that, but it is limited in that community. Climate literacy, helping them to understand what their own environment is, it is very limited. And sorry, I'm just struggling to see this tiny bit. I wonder how you guys are saying. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it is very limited. And also another thing that, leads to this again, or digital inclusion. Once they are cut off from the global climate conversation and they don't have a say, they're not participating, this actually affects them in ways that, you can't explain. Using myself as an example, I don't know if it's like that for you guys. I didn't get to know about climate until I think probably 300 level, and it wasn't deep. And maybe when I started my master's in Unilag was when the gist about climate became deep because it was at the master's level. And until I, you know, did my master's dissertation, that was when I was able to understand, or I'll say until I moved to the global north, that was when I understood what climate change is, like a deep version of, climate conversations going around the world. Um and things you're supposed to do, climate carriers, and in the global south we are kind of limited to all of this. And since children that are exposed to this are majorly in the global south, it's also affects their what to do in the future, what they can think of doing in the future, um their future plans generally. So policy participation as well. Children in the global south are rarely involved in policy participation when it comes to climate change. But thank God there's a lot of inclusiveness going on now, moving to include young children and not just adults or young adults in the talk about climate change. And also green economy access. They're disconnected from sustainable livelihood pathways opening in the economy. There are a lot of things that they are disconnected from. I mean, I'd say for someone staying in like a coastal community, there are a lot of things that they can think of around green economy. But since you've been disconnected from education, disconnected from even if we are not properly educated, digital inclusion, or there are so many people we know that do not have like a full-fledged education, but the access to digital technology has actually changed them, help them to understand and help them to get information, access to information of things that they can do, right? So being disconnected from sustainable livelihood pathways that is opening like forms of circular economy, talk about what they can do in that region, from either turning it to a tourist site, a part of it to a tourist site, to what they can do around reusing, recycling, waste to something else that can actually benefit their community. So climate literacy is becoming a form of capital, and it is not evenly distributed. And it's very unfair on them that it's not actually included in curriculums right from their younger age. And it is just limited to you having to maybe push for it personally. Okay. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Me myself, I'm trying to pinch my eyes. Okay. Um, yeah, so the national adaptation plans, these are, you know, all of the designs by the UN, and to how countries can contribute to reducing their their greenhouses emission, and how they can be supported. But in all of this, national adaptation plans, or the NDCS, none of them includes children are not involved in these designs. All of these designs are for adults. All of these designs think about the grown up, not about children. So all of these designs are not inclusive, because we need to carry them. Adaptation is you including everybody. It is not supposed to be exclusive to certain age group. It is supposed to be inclusive. So all of this form of adaptation is not inclusive, because it does not include children are not part of the um stakeholders in this. So another form of adaptation is the flood barriers and sea walls, infrastructure investment frameworks that are being done. Children are not included, because sometimes they don't even think of schools for children, or how this can involve them, how they can participate fully. So adaptation that excludes children is not complete adaptation. It is an adaptation that will need to be done again. So if we look at the National Adaptation Plan and the nationally determined contribution, they are all legitimate, they are all necessary. I'm not saying they are wrong, but um, children are not involved in this design, and it's very unfair on them that they are not involved. And if we are designing or planning our earth to be inherited by them, they need to understand what they are going to take care of. They need to understand their involvement in their future. And so depriving them of this is very unfair. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So another form of adaptation that should be included, that includes children, is curriculum. So helping them to understand this in school, right? When we compare children in the global north and global south, in the global north, we see that climate change is already being infused in their curriculum. They're being carried along, understanding, the health they're going to inherit. They are beginning to understand, why sea level rise, how all of this is, the forms of sustainable transportation, the forms of sustainable food, agriculture. And children that are actually, at the forefront of this do not even understand why sea level rise. They don't understand why fisheries are changing. They don't understand what their right is. They don't understand, all of these. Or what if my grandfather had said to me some 30, 20 years ago, there used to be this particular species, but now they don't have it? Or do they understand it is due to, climate? Do they understand it is due to, probably temperature change, or due to something that has happened, right? And they don't understand invasive species, and stuff like that, what has happened. So all of this need to be included in curriculum as a form of adaptation for children in the global south, to be able to um level up with their colleagues in the global north, and they need to also understand what their rights are. Understanding climate justice, it shouldn't come as charity to them. It doesn't have to be until NGOs go to them to say, oh, we are fighting for you. The minute they understand it, the real stakeholders understand it, they will know that it's their rights, and they have the knowledge to fight for it. And then another thing is, okay, sorry. So it helps them understand pathway into global economy. That is what the world is you know, pushing for. Um the economy is growing, and so the question is, the children in coastal Nigeria or Bangladesh, would they be involved in that growth or left behind again? And being left behind again, that community is going to remain stagnant. Development is not coming, and it is very unfair on them. And then emotional resilience, naming climate fear, building agencies, and not just knowledge, helping them understand that you know preparing them for the future. Yeah, like I said, that what is being explored currently in climate change is the mental aspect, because people are beginning to feel it's too much, it's causing climate anxiety. And we cannot teach about climate change without also teaching children how to hold the fear it generates. So all of this is needed to prepare them. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So another form, like we discussed earlier, is digital divide, is a form of adaptation in climate change that should be included for children in the coastal region. Because when you compare, I've got this list of comparing children in the global north and in the global south. So they have access to stable electricity, and they're able to join loads of global climate forums online, preparing them, helping them to understand, building something innovative. And whilst children in the global south do not have access to stable electricity, so if they do, I mean, they understand this even better than somebody in the global north, because they're experiencing it firsthand. And if we check access to climate data and research, we have limited access to data, climate, and research. And it's not even just about the limited internet access. Some of our education curriculum with regards to these are outdated. And all of our research is sometimes 5 years backward, and you just you have your mates that are 5 years ahead of you, 10 years ahead of you. So comparing, digital divide is actually a big issue in that term, because they need digital skills to be able to level up to this climate change thing happening as well. And then they participate in virtual advocacy. I'm in a lot of groups where I see children under the age of 16, under the age of 14, thinking outside of the box, already understanding what circular economy is. Oh, this is what we can do with the waste we have in our house. This is what we can do with what is currently going on. Oh, this is what I can do with my mom's traveling box that she's supposed to dispose. And all of this is just due to the fact that they have access to you know digital forums where they are being taught other things, bringing science and technology into climate change. I'm understanding that we have to adapt that minute, or adapt climate change to our current lifestyle. Yeah. And then also we have climate integrated international curriculum, of course. But ours is not integrated. I mean, in global south, it's not integrated into the curriculum yet. and it's just framed as fate, like, oh, maybe it's, God's will. It's happened because it's God's will. It happened because it has to happen. But there's some things that we can actually um you know develop a lot of mitigation plans too. And go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, so like I said, climate change is framed only as fate, to see, oh, it is God's will. It is, it's just happening because we do not, I mean, understand, we don't have a deep understanding. We don't understand the advocacy language. And then when you don't understand advocacy language, you don't, you can't express what you're really going through, right? And then you just accept it as fate. Because, I mean, it is when you can express what you're going through, you get help. So without climate literacy, coastal communities cannot name the causes of what they are experiencing. They can't use advocacy language to demand protection because it is perceived as, not having enough understanding of what is happening. So their participation in adaptation plan, as it will reduce that as well. They cannot participate in adaptation plan as informed stakeholders. But I think a lot of work is actually going on now, and the fact that, stakeholders are community stakeholders are involved in a lot of planning, which is very, very beautiful. But children are still not included, which, is a thing of the future that would actually, come to affect us later, because we think that adults are, children are very fast learners and things stick, whether you like it or not. And they actually, go home to teach their own parent as well, to say, oh, I've learned this. I've learned that if we have candle wax at home, I can use that to, make probably crayons. Or if I have my candle, what's it called now? Like a glass jar where you have your candles, or I could use that as my cup later on. All of these, they go home to teach all of these, beautiful ideas. And so teach children how the system works and how to change it. So if we do not have proper climate literacy, in coastal communities, to teach the children how the system works and how to change it, the community is still going to be stagnant, and no development is going to come into the community. Can we go to the next slide, please? Sorry. Yeah, thank you. So what inclusion should actually looks like? What should adaptation look like? The inclusion of children in adaptation, it should look like having child climate councils, where youth advisory roles in coastal adaptation planning process, not consultative, real roles with real influence over decisions that will shape their coastal line, because they understand the coastal line, better than anybody. And also digital inclusion as well as an infrastructure. So internet access framed as an adaptation investment and not luxury. Everyone should have, I mean, I would want to class internet as part of the basic needs that we should have as human, because the world is digitalized currently. And putting myself and yourself in their shoes, one day we'd have to go without our phone. We feel incomplete. It's like you're not connected to the world. It's like you don't know what's happening. So that's the way it feels for them. So it should be seen as an infrastructure and not luxury, because internet connectivity helps, to bridge climate vulnerable communities to be treated the same way, because it helps them have access to information. So another thing is the youth shoreline monitoring. Children as local data collectors and environmental observers. Of course, they know, these are people that understand the patterns of that particular region. They know what, the sky looks like when it's about to rain. They know what's happening. They understand low tides. They understand the high tides, and they understand seasons better than some of us that do not live there. So this would help, help build, agencies that are, needed simultaneously. It helps, I mean, if they could document erosions, document water level, species changes, all of this helps them, to become better person and prepare them for the future. Also, integrated curriculum. When climate is interwoven into every subject, from science to geography to economics to social studies and everything they do, not just a 1 week unit. Because whether we like it or not, climate is tied to finances, it is tied to the environment, it is tied to the economy, it is tied to everything that we literally do. It's tied to, the clothing, it is tied to everything that we do to our food. So it should be integrated into every subject and not just a one-off topic. Because majorly most times in global south, climate literacy is being taught by NGOs who, get volunteers to go to schools to help them understand certain things, which is, very unfair on children, because we've got, when compared to people in the global north, that it is already included. We already know the amount of water used in making one particular clothes, the amount of why I shouldn't throw my food away, and things like that. So community school linkage as well, have lesson tied directly to fishing, to water and local livelihood, and also nature-based solutions, which is like, one of the solutions to coastal flooding, having mangrove clubs, school gardens, rainwater harvesting scheme, particularly having green infrastructure is built around that area to help them understand the kind of life they live. So can we go to the next slide, please? And I think that should be the last one. So yeah. So what can we do? So for academics and researcher, um, fill the evidence gap in that region. Child mental health on climate frontline, coastal children risking mapping beyond national average, and what works in climate education in remote communities. Research in their gaps in that areas, understanding what works in climate education in remote communities, and helping children, because there was a time I was trying to get some information about the level of climate literacy in Nigeria, and I couldn't find a concrete paper to work with, and those are evidence gaps, I mean research gap, that we can fill to help them understand, document all of these things. And then another is policy makers and strategies. We integrate climate literacy across national curriculum, ensure that it is infused there, teachers are trained, and then resource resilient schooling in coastal belt as well, and then include children and youth in adaptation planning. And I would also say, aside from integrating climate literacy across national curriculum, building green schools as well would actually, help change the perspective from which these children see climate literacy, like climate change, because they're already living in it. So imagine having a green school where everything is green, where everything functions right. It changes their perspective and it helps them to live right. So another would be the NGO practitioner. What they can do is co-create with communities and not for them. Because if you're doing it for them and they're not included in all of these things, there's no impact. And the basis of creating things like this is because you want to impact people. So build materials that work offline, and that's, we should be able to adapt to the system, to the community of the to the system of the community, and then link lessons to local livelihoods, like what they can relate to. And for other professionals, sorry, I used sustainability professionals, treat children's preparedness as human capital, and connect coastal resilience to generational equity, and then measure child outcomes and not just infrastructures. Hooray! Okay. Yeah, so we cannot build resilient coastline without resilient children. So because exposure is rising daily and preparation is unequal, which is a very, very big deal for me. Preparation is unequal and participation is limited. I have this current competition in which I am a reviewer. It's the Earth.org, and having children from all over the world coming up with their sustainability project or think of something you can do, and a lot of reviews, I mean limited reviews from all of this global south. And I think is because we're not carried along, the children are not climate literate enough to want to develop something outstanding. um and then they don't even have access to all of this information to want to participate or in saying, oh, okay, I'm going to participate on this world platform. So adaptation that excludes children is incomplete, and if we continue to design adaptation around infrastructure and economics alone, we will build resilient coastlines and no, we will not build, sorry, we will not build resilient coastline and um oh, we will build resilient coastline and fragile generations. So the generations will not be prepared for what is to come when they get the heat that is on 2 degrees Celsius. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, next slide. Hooray! So if coastal children inherit the shoreline, we they inherit the tools to shape it too. So the tools needed are like climate literacy first, because education is very important. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
TED Talk indeed. Oh, thank you so much. Can we give our speaker a round of applause? Let's give her a round of applause. I can't see our claps. Yeah, thank you, Peter. So let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank
That
you.
was nice. So, do we have anyone with question? Any questions at all for our speaker? I know we are really really behind schedule, but if you have any questions, anyone with questions, okay. If we don't have question, I think maybe I should ask one question. So,
I think
I think it
someone is
was.
asking if I hear.
Oh, really? Is anyone asking a question? I can't see any question here. Power. Do we have anyone with question before
Oh,
I move?
sorry. I think it's um another plain background from my end. But then I have a question.
Oh, good. Go ahead, please.
All right, let me first appreciate our speaker. You've really done a wonderful presentation, and I really enjoy it. So it's I really appreciate you. So my question is, looking at you talking about the global south, the global north, and the advantage and the privilege that the global north have, the access they have compared to the global south. And at the end of your presentation, I was actually looking at that quote before, and I was trying to comprehend it. But you also got there, and you were a bit confused. It Even with the way you still correct it, I think it has not yet been.
Okay.
But this is just what I want to say. Now, the economy, Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
for example, now, the economy
Mm-hmm.
and the infrastructure is not yet balanced, and people who are growing are still finding
Mm-hmm.
means of surviving. Now, calling on youths or children who already have another
Mm-hmm.
kind of mindset that, oh, you have to live to survive, trying to now bringing them into this perception. How can we actually bring in young children whose understanding about life is about how to just balance themselves economically, financially, and
Mhm.
let me even talk okay, financially and all that area.
Mhm. Correct.
It won't be something, and I think it's something that a lot of NGO find hard to do, because it's easy for you time they will be following up with all these climate change
Mhm.
policy and everything, but at the point everybody just wants to make survivor, everybody just wants to flow in direction of the economy. So what do we need to do to ensure that even children and even the youth, I know that is the focus is not about the youth now, that even children can actually imbibe this culture? What are the things that I know that you've talked about these things, but now
Mhm.
considering
Oh, I think I lost you in there.
Yeah, I can't hear him also. But
it
you
done,
get the scope of his question, right?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Okay.
How do we engage children or young adults? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I use the word children, I'd say it encompasses until you are 18. All right. So probably I should have framed it as young adults. And when you said that they're thinking of surviving, rather than thinking of climate change, whether we like it or not, it's already happening in Nigeria. If you look at people who live in the Niger Delta, to Paul, please, can you remind me the name of that place we went to in Ogun State? Um,
You woke me.
God
Woke me
bless you.
waterside. Yeah.
When you go there, people are behind, and it's just because the way they are framed. We've designed our community to, um, you know, think that intervention should be about money, and not everybody's quota to development, and it should go beyond that. And whilst we see, there was one time I did an assignment in school, and I saw that the level of cars being imported into Nigeria, like the least of the least. And we are like one of the top importers of secondhand cars, which should not be. And in this place, we have communities. I mean, we have the government fighting that there are, types of cars, the kind of exhaust that should go into. The first thing should be people's perspective, like he said, should needs to change. We need to understand that. I mean, if you go closer to older people, you hear them say, "Oh, farming is not like before, where they could plant." You know that. Oh, let me use agbalumo for an example. I don't know what agbalumo's English name. African star apple. Yeah. So if you use that for an example, whilst we were younger, they would tell you, "Oh, rain needs to fall on it," because to them, the certain seasons, things need to happen at certain seasons, before it comes on. And so we've made what's it called now, people's perception based on, oh, maybe we have to pay them. When you go to communities, what they want is, oh, I think we have to give us money for you to be able to do this in our community. So we need to help everybody understand that it has to be a collective effort for it to work. And while it is working here, and it's because they have been, they have this community sense of belonging in their community. They understand it is their community and nobody is coming to save them. And until we start thinking in that in that frame of mind, that is when change starts to happen, because change comes from your mindset. Once there's a change in your mindset, that is when you can see beyond what you are saying. If you have a fixed mindset and you just want it to be, oh, it is until we are paid to do this, until government comes to do this, it's not going to we are just going to be stranded there. Like I said, it's very unfair on me growing up that I got to see a green space at age 17. Once they have children here in my community that move around, they have a playground. Some of us never saw jingle over, which is unfair. It is just because, the way community is, we've been trained to accept, some things that we are not supposed to accept. And until we come back together, change our mindset to a growing mindset, that is when, things will change. That is when, because, I mean, seeing, I think it's in Cote d'Ivoire, some few years ago, where we had seen countries coming to tell them to do these carbon credits, pay them to pollute their country. It is unfair. But the community stood up when one of them, because some of them understood what it was, to say, no, we don't want that. You're not coming to buy our land for cheap to get carbon credits whilst you are polluting it. And then you come in to take their land. So because there has been a form of literacy, somebody understood what carbon, credit is to them. And that was able to, stop the whole thing. We don't want it. So one of the examples I will use again is that, like community, I can't. The person's name is Dede, but I can't remember where in the Niger Delta where they had brought in the 70s, brought in waste from, I don't know if it's Poland, but I can't remember the country. But I know the waste was brought to Nigeria to be dumped into our coastal line, into our water. And they had seen one fisherman, I think his name, is it Coco or something? I can't remember his name. And he was paid, I can't even, very ridiculous amount of money to have that waste deposited into the water, which killed a lot of fish, disrupted their environment, caused a lot of disease. And eventually, I think Nigeria had to sue that country. So understanding that community power is the first thing, it helps change, perspective. Understanding that we cannot stay there. I mean, when you see people come in, a normal Lagosian on the bus is eating gala, throwing the line on off the bus. The perspective needs to change. It's not until when government comes to pick you up, when Kai comes to pick you up, and then you think you want to do the right thing. Because we are suffering it as well, as much as we think we are not, fishermen are complaining. They don't have access to, and the issue of having middleman take almost all their money when we don't have, they can't even afford to buy the gears they are supposed to use. So all of that is, until there's a change in community thinking, a change in community perspective. And um my dad used to say something that you would act the way your parents think sometimes, right? So when there's a change, when I have a sense of belonging, it is my Nigeria, it is our Nigeria, it is not their Nigeria, I would want to do something. I don't want it to be, the same way. We don't want to be treated like, I wouldn't want it to be like, we are backward. We just want to move forward like every other person is moving forward. So I don't know if that has answered your question, but yeah.
I think that has answered this question because I could see from the chat that he said he loved some of the things you use as illustration. So please, other people that have questions, please make it short because by 8:35, we are putting a close to it. So Kemi, over to you, please.
So mine is not well, Kemi, it was really nice to hear from you again. And interestingly, I'm also into like coastal research, and my passion actually did spring up from the field trip we had to Oluwakemi. Like that was where I'm like, oh wow, so there's this side of the world to existing, and that was why I became very interested in like coastal research and like thinking about adaptation and all of that. And it's not like a question; it's just like an addition to what you say. But I just wanted to say that sometimes working with these groups can be very tricky because my master's research was in Spain. I was working with small scale fishers in Spain that live along the coastline. And there was something I saw. These people have very strong cultural attachment to what they do. There's a word for it. I can't remember what that word is right now. So I was in Makoko 2 years ago, and I interacted with some fishers too along that waterside area. And I figured they also have this very strong attachment. So like this is what they know. And when we come in as an NGO or a group and you're trying to like open their eyes to some things, you have to learn to relate with them at their level, just like Kemi was saying. So it's not easy to like just go there and tell them, oh, there's climate change. And they tell you, what do we want to go to? In my research survey, I had a question that, okay, what if the impact of climate change increases to like 70% than what you're already experiencing? Are you going to leave? And people were like, no, we are staying. I'm like, do you want to die? But like, they don't want to leave because they are thinking, all we've known in our life, throughout our life is fishing. We've passed it to our children. Our parents passed it to us. Like, how do you want us to go somewhere and start afresh? And I think it's something people don't understand. And they don't trust NGOs because they feel like, oh, these people are coming to just make money off us. And
Yeah.
even researchers, like, they were skeptical about answering my survey because they were like,
Mm.
you guys will just come do research, publish papers, and that's all.
Yeah.
Like, don't come back to give us feedback and all of those
Mm.
things. So I think there has to be there has to be this bottom up, I don't know, management thing. Like, everybody, all stakeholders has to be involved. So it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, NGOs, both the local people and the government, it's an intertwined thing. So, like, I
Mm.
really enjoyed your presentation. I like that you,
Yeah.
I think it's a good start to, like, have people put this problem out there, and,
Mm.
like, we could all find a common ground at the end of the day. But it's a very tricky situation. Makoko, I
Yeah.
was just laughing because they're a big problem. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I was there with some professors from Lagos State University and University of Lagos, and
Yeah.
they're telling me that the government has tried over time to move them from that place,
Yeah.
and they refuse to leave
Yeah.
because of this cultural attachment, and because if they leave, there are some incentives they're getting from the government that they will stop getting.
Mm.
So they are worried about that too, like all of this money, because NGOs will come, will give them money,
Yeah. Money. Yeah.
and then they are fine for some time, and, like, no, if
Yeah.
we do this, we won't get this benefit again.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big
Okay.
issue. But yeah, but really nice job, and it was good to hear your voice again.
Thank you, Kemi. Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you. You know why I was laughing? Someone reached out to me like it's ladies talk now. So that was
Oh, was
so
just
that
doing
was why
some
I was
catch up.
laughing. Yeah. So you could see that most like Kemi, they both mentioned that it woke me. So yeah, I think fundamentals that are here they can relate. So it woke me. For me also, I'm working on coastal environment right now, but I'm working more on microplastics. But Iwoki also gave me insight. You could see in my personal statement of purpose, you always see Iwoki there. So yeah. So if you are not a Funabite, sorry, I'm really sorry. Sorry about
This
that.
is raising his hand though before it's 8:35.
Yeah, I know. So the last person, David, please make it short. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that beautiful and insightful presentation. All right, so I was just going to ask a question. Like, I also work in coastal communities, and I do my project and research in these areas, being my core focus. So, how do you personally involve the children in balancing the conflicts, or, like, let me say, the priorities between conservation and livelihood? Like, how do you balance that? How do you involve the children? Like, what role do you expect them to play in this situation?
That's a very tricky one. So, involving children, I mean, you need to understand that children's attention span is very short. Um, that was the first thing I understood in dealing with children. They want something that is engaging. So the way we engage children is you give them, something to think about. Children are very curious. Myself and you will agree that whilst we were younger, we want to think of how did this baby get into my mommy's tummy, even though I don't have a younger one. But you think of how did this baby get into this person's tummy? Children are curious. They want to understand, oh, why is this this leaf turning brown now? Right? So we need something to feed their curiosity. Help them, don't shut down their curiosity, and engaging them is another way. Understanding what they like, what they are curious about. So one thing we'd use is I use videos, I use comics sometimes that breaks what they can relate to. That actually helps them understand, what conservation is. If you're working on conservation, relate it, do it like a story. So what I've learned is that doing it like a story helps children understand, right? And they take these stories home, whether we like it or not. It's what you are like. You taught something in school, you want to get home to tell your parents, oh, blah blah blah, or whilst your parents are fishing, oh, they said, oh, this person said if we planted this, red mangrove, it's actually going to help do this, or numbers of red mangroves, we don't have to cut them down for firewood and stuff like that. It's just sing I mean like growing up, I don't know if you sing in class, like you have some what's it called now? The times table that you've learned with song, things like that stick. So you need to look for ways to engage them, and that would actually, help them participate improve their participation majorly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to everyone that made this to be really, really engaging. I wouldn't want to I won't ask my question anymore because of time. Yeah, I will save that for the next time that you'll be coming to give us a talk. Thank you everyone. And thank you, Baki Aziz, for just helping out when I was away. Like you guys may not noticed. Yeah. So he filled in for me. So thank you so much, everyone. And we hope to see you in our next uh Ocean Leadership series, which will be in the next month. So thank you so much, Oluwakemi.
Thank
Obagboye now, not
you.
Dada. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
because it was just a conversation and you applied and you came. So thank you so much. And can we
Thank
give
you.
our speaker a round of applause?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a couple of Funab here. So shout out to Funab.